You can tell a disappointing pickle before you taste it. The knife comes down, and instead of that clean little snap, the cucumber bends under the blade. The center looks tired. The skin slips away from the flesh. All the hoeing, picking, washing, and waiting has ended in a pickle nobody wants besides supper. Most people blame the recipe first. Then somebody remembers a grape leaf, a pinch of alum, or a trick an older neighbor used. Before long, that one missing thing has become the whole explanation. Crispness seldom depended on one secret. Before we ask what went into the crock, we need to know what kind of pickle was being made. A fermented dill, a fresh packed pickle, and a refrigerator pickle may all involve cucumbers, salt, vinegar, and spices. They are still different processes. They do not depend on the same controls, and advice from one method can cause trouble when it wanders into another. So the first useful answer is simple. Name the method before you try to fix the texture. A fermented pickle develops acidity through a controlled fermentation. Salt, temperature, time, and keeping the cucumbers under the brine matter there. A fresh pack or quick process pickle is acidified with vinegar according to a tested recipe and handled as that recipe directs. A refrigerator pickle stays cold and follows its own tested directions and storage limits. I do not want to ask only what makes a pickle crunchy. I want to know why two crocks that look nearly alike could give a household two very different pickles. We will follow two cucumbers from the vine. One is picked at the right stage and moved promptly into a method prepared for it. The other waits in July heat, carries more mature seed, keeps the blossom end, or enters a process changed by guesswork. By the time those cucumbers reach the crock, a good part of the answer has already been decided. A cucumber keeps changing after it leaves the vine. That small pickling cucumber is mostly water held inside living plant structure. Its cell walls give the flesh firmness. As a cucumber matures, the seeds enlarge, the center becomes less dense, and the skin may toughen. Warmth and delay after harvest do not make that structure younger. The first protection for a crisp pickle is not a spice. It is a fresh cucumber, suited to pickling and handled promptly. Garden judgment mattered here. The smallest cucumber was not right for every product, and a large one was not automatically useless. Its size needed to suit the pickle being made. Still, an overmature cucumber with big seeds and a hollowing center could not be made young again by pouring in stronger brine. Put two cucumbers on the table. The first is firm and recently picked. We wash it, inspect it, and match it to a tested method. The second has set in a hot basket on the porch. From the doorway, it still looks green and respectable. Press its middle, though, and you may feel the difference. Now look at the ends. Current preservation guidance tells us to remove a thin slice from the blossom end. That end may carry enzymes that contribute to excessive softening. The small cut is a more dependable step than asking a leaf to correct everything later. This is where an old piece of advice deserves a fair hearing. Grape leaves do contain a substance that can inhibit softening enzymes. That helps explain the leaf's reputation. The National Center for Home Food Preservation also says that removing the blossom end makes a grape leaf unnecessary for that purpose. It does not mean people were foolish for using one. The leaf may have belonged to a household's flavor, habit, or best available knowledge. We simply do not need to treat it as a magic shield. Be just as careful with alum, lime, and modern firming products. They are not interchangeable, and they do not belong in every method. Some have specific tested uses and preparation requirements. None can repair spoiled produce or make altered proportions safe. The cucumber brings its condition to the cutting board. From there, every step either protects that condition or works against it. And summer heat is waiting at the crock. A stoneware crock looks quiet from across the room. Inside a fermenting pickle crock, a living process is underway. The right organisms need the right conditions. Salt helps favor the desired fermentation while holding back organisms that do not belong. The cucumbers remain covered by brine. Temperature affects how quickly the process moves and how well the texture holds. For the National Center for Home Food Preservation's tested fermented dill procedure, the recommended range is 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooler conditions from 55 to 65 degrees can work, but the cure takes longer. Temperatures above 80 degrees should be avoided because the pickles become too soft. Think about that warning in an Appalachian July. A crock beside a cook stove, in a sun-struck kitchen, or against a wall holding afternoon heat lives in a different little climate from one kept in a cooler, shaded place. People did not need laboratory language for every change to notice that one corner made better pickles than another. That does not mean every old kitchen had perfect control. Summer temperatures moved, rooms became hot, fermentations failed, a vessel could be contaminated, cucumbers could rise above the brine. Keeping them submerged is part of the process. When the tested method calls for cucumbers under brine, the cover and weight have a real job. Pieces floating at the top meet a different environment. The container, cover, and weight also need to be suitable for food fermentation. The brine is not something to weaken because the first taste seems too salty. In fermented pickles, the specified salt supports safety and texture. Reducing it by instinct changes the environment the tested method was built to create. Our first cucumber stays below the brine in a suitable vessel at the temperature its procedure calls for. The second rises into the air, sits too warm, or enters a brine somebody changed because salt seemed like seasoning and nothing more. Both crocks can look handsome. Only one has controlled conditions. If a fermented batch becomes soft, slimy, or develops a disagreeable odor, current National Center guidance says to discard it. Do not taste it to settle the question. Of course, many summer pickles are not fermented at all. That brings us to vinegar and heat, where another set of rules applies. A fresh-packed pickle reaches sourness by a different road. Instead of waiting for fermentation to develop acidity, a tested fresh-pack recipe acidifies the cucumbers with vinegar. The proportions of vinegar, food, and water are part of the safety design. So is the vinegar strength named in the recipe. We cannot pour in extra water because the brine tastes sharp. We cannot add twice the cucumbers because there is room in the jar. We cannot substitute vinegar when we do not know its acidity. If the flavor is not right for the household, choose another tested recipe rather than taking apart the one on the table. Heat needs the same care. Too much heat can hurt texture. Too little heat or the wrong process can leave a product improperly processed. Some tested pickle recipes allow a carefully controlled low-temperature pasteurization treatment. It has a specified temperature range and time, and it can be used only when the recipe allows it. It is not a general trick for any jar of vegetables. Crispness and safety do not have to fight each other. Neither one gives us permission to ignore the other. When a pickle turns soft, there may be several causes. The cucumbers may have been overmature or left too long after harvest. Blossom ends may have remained. Fermentation may have run too warm. Vinegar may have been too weak, the brine insufficient, the cucumbers poorly submerged, the heat process incorrect, or the spices spoiled. More than one problem can occur in the same batch. One folk fix is easier to remember than that chain of conditions. The chain is still the real explanation. Start with a fresh cucumber, prepare it correctly, choose the method, follow the tested proportions, use a suitable container, control temperature when fermentation requires it, keep the food submerged where directed, finish the correct processing and storage. Not every link does the same work in every kind of pickle. That is the reason we named the method at the beginning. Refrigerator pickles make the distinction plain. Vinegar touching a cucumber does not make the jar shelf stable. That product stays refrigerated and follows the tested recipe's storage guidance. A pretty jar cannot decide its own category once it reaches the pantry. Pickling belongs in Appalachian food history because summer food often arrived faster than it could be eaten. Modern West Virginia heritage guidance still recognizes that practice while telling readers to follow current preservation directions. That is a sensible way to carry the foodway forward. There is a useful photograph from the Southern Appalachian Project near Barberville, Kentucky, made in 1940. It shows canned goods and homegrown vegetables in a household storage building. The caption does not give us permission to call every jar a cucumber pickle, so we will not. What it does show is the larger setting for this work. Preserved food stood beside fresh produce, and storage was an organized part of the household rather than a decorative shelf made for a camera. Keep the taste memory and the careful eye. Keep a sound, suitable crock if you use one. Let current evidence govern the parts that memory alone cannot test. Suppose the cucumber vines are ready tomorrow. Decide what you are making before you pick. Fermented dills, tested fresh packed pickles, and tested refrigerator pickles need different preparation, time, storage, and attention. Choose one current recipe before the basket reaches the kitchen. Then read what it requires. Do you have the right cucumber type and size? Is the vinegar the strength named in the directions? Do you have canning or pickling salt where it is required? Is the fermentation vessel suitable? Can you keep the cucumbers submerged? Can you hold the needed temperature? For a shelf-stable product, do you have the correct jars, canner, and altitude adjustment? If something essential is missing, choose a different tested method or postpone the batch. Wanting a recipe to work cannot make the missing control appear. Harvest only what you can handle promptly. Keep the basket shaded and cool. Wash and inspect the cucumbers. Remove the thin blossom end slice as current guidance directs. Discard anything moldy, slimy, or spoiled. Then follow that one method without borrowing steps from another. Do not reduce salt in a fermented pickle recipe. Do not dilute vinegar or crowd extra vegetables into a fresh pack formula. Do not put a refrigerator pickle in the pantry. Do not assume a firming product lets you change the rest of the process. Write down what you did. Record the tested source, date, cucumber variety if you know it, and anything useful about the batch conditions. When one batch has better texture than another, notes give you more than a guess made 6 months later. A record can also protect a family flavor. If a certain spice profile matters, look for a tested recipe that comes close instead of risking the entire method to preserve one handwritten proportion. There is room for preference. Some people want a sharp pickle, some like sweet spice, some want fermented sourness, others want a thin slice for a sandwich. Choosing among tested recipes is often the simplest way to respect both taste and control. Remember that crunch is one quality, not the safety test. A properly made pickle may still be softer than you like. That tells you something for the next batch. It does not make every soft pickle safe to taste, and it does not overrule signs of spoilage. We are not trying to win a contest with the past. We are trying to see which choices protected the cucumber and which ones merely looked traditional. The sound of a good pickle breaking is small, but people remember it. Behind that snap are the fresh cucumber, the cool basket, the trim blossom end, measured ingredients, a weighted crock, a watched temperature, and the patience to follow one method all the way through. The most picturesque object tends to get the credit. A grape leaf makes a better story than a temperature range. A blue crock makes a better picture than notes about a batch. Both the leaf and the crock belong to the history. They just do not need to carry explanations they cannot support. The useful old skill was observation. People noticed which cucumber held well, which corner stayed cooler, which vessel kept the food submerged, and which batch the family actually ate. Current preservation science helps us tell a good observation from a risky guess. If a summer pickle goes soft, begin with the method. Then walk back through the cucumber, blossom in, temperature, brine or vinegar, submersion, heat process, and storage. Somewhere along that path, the texture story usually becomes clearer. What kind of pickle did your household put up when cucumbers came in? Was it a fermented deal, a bread and butter slice, a refrigerator pickle, or something else? Tell me what you remember, but please leave untested, shelf-stable proportions out of the comments. The memory matters, and so does keeping one another safe. Next time, we will carry an ear of corn from the road to the kitchen and see why sweet corn would not wait until tomorrow. Until then, keep the basket cool, choose the method first, and take good care of yourself.